Welcome to Socratic Spark, the channel where questions ignite your mind and wisdom lights your path. Here, we explore the timeless lessons of the world's greatest thinkers, challenge what you think you know, and guide you to a life of clarity, courage, and purpose. If you're ready to question boldly, live intentionally, and discover the truth behind every idea, hit that subscribe button and join our journey. Your spark of wisdom starts here. Athens, 399 BCE. The sun sets over the crowded marketplace, the agora, where voices rise and fall like the waves of the sea. Merchants shout, children laugh, and soldiers boast of conquests. Yet amidst the clamor, there is one figure who does not shout, does not sell, does not flatter. A man in simple robes, barefooted, with eyes that cut deeper than any sword, Socrates. He stops a young man, asks a question, then another, until certainty crumbles and confusion takes its place. The crowd gathers, curious, uneasy. Months later, this same man now stands in a courtroom, accused of corrupting the youth, accused of disrespecting the gods. 500 jurors watch as he speaks, not in defense of his life, but in defense of truth. The unexamined life is not worth living, he declares, knowing these words may be his death sentence. And yet, there is no fear in his voice, only conviction. This is not just history. This is a mirror. For as you listen, you too are on trial. Your choices, your beliefs, your courage. Socrates is not merely a man of the past. He is the voice that whispers in your own silence, daring you to question everything you think you know. Imagine walking barefoot through the bustling streets of Athens 2,000 years ago. The sun glints off marble columns, merchants shout prices, children laugh, and philosophers argue. Their voices tangle with the sound of clanging bronze and the whispers of the crowd. And in the midst of this chaos walks a man. Simple robes, humble sandals, yet eyes that see farther than most dare to look. This is Socrates, not a god, not a king, not a man of wealth or power, but a man armed with questions sharper than any sword. Socrates did not teach with grandiose speeches or elaborate lessons. He questioned, he asked, he probed, he revealed the cracks in human certainty. I know that I know nothing, he would say, not to boast of ignorance, but to illuminate the beginning of true wisdom. Every conversation, every dialogue, every challenge to authority was a step toward uncovering a life worth living. And yet, the life he lived was perilous. Athens, proud and confident, feared what they could not control. They feared truth unmasked. Socrates was accused of corrupting youth, of disrespecting the gods, and ultimately condemned to death. But in facing poison, he did not falter. His calm acceptance was not defeat. It was a testament to the courage of a life examined, a life committed to virtue above comfort, to truth above survival. Why does this matter to you now, in your world of endless distractions, fleeting likes, and curated appearances? Because the questions Socrates asked are timeless. What do you truly know? Are you living authentically, or merely performing a life scripted by expectation? Are you willing to confront your own ignorance, to challenge the comfortable lies you tell yourself, and to stand in the discomfort of truth? Socrates' philosophy is not just history. It is a mirror. His dialogues, preserved through Plato, echo through the centuries, daring each listener to awaken. They remind us that life is short, that power is seductive, that conformity is easy, and that courage is rare. Yet within each of us lies a capacity to live as he did, questioning, seeking, daring to confront both the world and ourselves with honesty. Engaging with Socratic wisdom is an invitation. It is an invitation to sharpen your mind, to live courageously, to navigate life with clarity, and to discover that the greatest journey is not outward, but inward. To honor Socrates is not merely to remember his death, but to embrace the life he championed, a life of inquiry, a life of purpose, a life that refuses the false comfort of ignorance. And so, as we step together into his world, hear his voice not as a distant echo, but as a living guide. Let us question, let us reflect, let us dare. For only in this pursuit does the unexamined life finally yield to wisdom. I am the heart Athens. The sun rises over white marble columns, casting long shadows on the cobblestone streets. Merchants prepare their stalls. Children chase each other through the crowded marketplace. and philosophers gather in quiet corners, debating the nature of life, virtue, and truth. Amidst this hum of ordinary life, one man moves differently. Barefoot, in simple robes, Socrates does not merely walk. He observes, he listens, he asks. A young disciple approaches him, eyes wide with curiosity and uncertainty. "Master," he says, "how do I know what is true?" Socrates looks into his eyes and responds not with answers, but with a question. "Do you think you truly know what you do not question?" This is the essence of Socratic courage. The bravery not to accept easy answers, the resilience to confront uncertainty, and the humility to admit ignorance. It is far easier to follow the crowd, to recite the doctrines of society, or to embrace conventional wisdom without scrutiny. But Socrates knew that wisdom begins where certainty ends. "I know that I know nothing," he declared, not as a confession of weakness, but as a proclamation of intellectual freedom. Consider the trial that would define his legacy. Accused of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, Socrates could have pleaded for his life, could have flattered the jurors, could have abandoned his principles. Yet he did none of these. He questioned boldly, challenging the assumptions of Athens itself. He asked, "Is it better to live a life of deceit and comfort, or to pursue truth even at the cost of death?" His courage was not in the absence of fear, but in the conscious choice to uphold integrity above survival. And this courage is not confined to history. It is alive today, whispering to each of us in moments of doubt and decision. How often do we accept opinions without scrutiny? How often do we avoid uncomfortable questions about our beliefs, relationships, or ambitions? Socratic courage is the willingness to pause, to confront discomfort, and to ask, "Am I living the life I truly choose, or merely the one that has been prescribed to me?" In our modern world, the gadflies are subtle. Misinformation, social pressure, the allure of conformity. Yet the principle remains timeless. Questioning requires inner strength, for it invites criticism, challenges comfort, and disrupts certainty. It demands that we examine not only the world around us, but the world within ourselves. What do we value? What do we fear? What truths are we avoiding because they threaten our sense of security? Socrates' courage to question is also an invitation to dialogue. True questioning is not rebellion for its own sake. It is a pursuit of understanding, a commitment to clarity, a refusal to settle for the shadows when the light of reason is within reach. As he once asked a group of Athenian youths, "When you speak of justice, what do you mean? Do you know, or do you merely repeat what you've been taught?" Each question was a spark, illuminating ignorance, revealing assumptions, and opening the door to insight. Today, embracing this courage transforms more than knowledge. It transforms life itself. It liberates us from blind obedience, challenges us to define our own values, and equips us to act with integrity even when the world resists. The courage to question is the first step toward authenticity. It is a compass guiding us through complexities of moral choice, the uncertainties of ambition, and the trials of human existence as we leave the marketplace of ancient Athens and return to our own streets, offices, and homes. Socrates' voice lingers. It whispers that to ask boldly is not disrespect, but devotion to truth, that to challenge our assumptions is not arrogance, but courage, and that the life worth living is not the one handed to us by others, but the one we examine, question, and ultimately choose for ourselves. In every conversation, every decision, every moment of reflection, we carry forward the legacy of Socrates, the bravery to question, the humility to listen, and the strength to pursue truth, even when it demands everything we have. The streets of Athens are quiet at dawn, the city holding its breath before the bustle begins. Socrates walks alone, observing the city with eyes that see beyond its walls, beyond its customs, beyond its illusions. He stops, not to admire the beauty of marble or the elegance of architecture, but to notice the subtleties of human thought, the unspoken assumptions that guide every decision, every word, every act. It was Socrates' unique gift, and perhaps his greatest provocation, to declare openly, "I know that I know nothing." At first glance, this may seem a confession of ignorance, a humble admission of weakness, but in truth, it is the beginning of wisdom. To admit what one does not know is to open the mind to possibility, to clear the path for curiosity, to confront life with honesty rather than pretense. In the agora, young men gather, eager to discuss politics, ethics, and art. They parade knowledge, quoting poets, philosophers, and politicians alike. Socrates asks simple questions. Do you truly understand the justice you speak of? Can you define it without borrowing the word of others? Many stumble, falter, and retreat. It is not shame that they feel, but revelation, the startling awareness of their own ignorance. This is the paradox of Socratic wisdom. Acknowledging what we do not know is itself a form of knowledge. True learning begins at the edge of uncertainty. The moment we recognize the limits of our understanding, we open ourselves to dialogue, reflection, and transformation. To pretend knowledge, by contrast, locks a mind in illusion, enslaves it to habit, and blinds it to truth. Imagine for a moment your own life. How often do we speak with certainty about topics we barely understand? How often do we hold beliefs passed down unquestioned, ideas repeated without examination? Socrates' courage reminds us that wisdom is not arrogance. It is humility. It is not accumulation of facts, but a clarity to see where facts end and assumptions begin. Consider the trial that awaited him. 500 jurors, the weight of the city pressing down, yet Socrates faced them with fearless honesty. He did not feign knowledge to save his life, nor did he soften his words to please. He embraced the limits of human understanding, teaching through example that true integrity resides not in claiming mastery, but in the relentless pursuit of truth. In our modern era, this lesson is more urgent than ever. We live in a world awash with information, yet flooded with false certainty. Social media, opinion leaders, and cultural echo chambers encourage us to believe we know more than we do. Socratic wisdom cuts through this noise. To question, to doubt, to embrace uncertainty is not weakness. It is a foundation of clarity, discernment, and authentic understanding. To live with this wisdom is to accept the discomfort of not knowing. It is to challenge assumptions, to seek counsel, to listen with humility. It is to recognize that every answer carries limits, and every truth we hold is provisional, awaiting refinement through inquiry and reflection. Ignorance, when acknowledged, becomes a lantern in the darkness, illuminating the path toward insight and virtue. Socrates' legacy is not a book of answers, but a method of awakening. By admitting ignorance, he empowered generations to think, question, and explore. By embracing humility, he demonstrated courage greater than any soldier on the battlefield. And by modeling this approach, he offered a timeless map for navigating a world of uncertainty, complexity, and moral challenge. As we move from the courage to question into the wisdom of acknowledging what we do not know, we carry forward a principle that transforms life itself. That the beginning of understanding is not certainty, but the brave acceptance of our own limits. And in this recognition, we find freedom. Freedom from pretense, from fear, and from illusion that we have already mastered the truths that truly matter. Athens, 399 BCE. The courtroom is filled with a murmur of 500 jurors, each seated like a silent judge not only of a man, but of the very ideals of their city. Socrates stands in the center, calm, unyielding, his voice carrying with quiet authority across the marble hall. Accused of corrupting the youth and disrespecting the gods, he faces not merely a sentence, but the full weight of societal expectation, fear, and misunderstanding. Yet Socrates does not plead for mercy. He does not beg. He does not soften the truth to appease the powerful. Instead, he confronts the charges directly, posing questions that pierce through the illusions of the jurors' own reasoning. Is it better to live a life of deceit and comfort, or pursue truth even at the cost of death? He asks, knowing that honesty may cost him everything, yet trusting that integrity is worth far more than survival. This trial was not merely legal. It was philosophical. It was a moment where courage, principle, and conscience collided with fear, ignorance, and conformity. Socrates' genius was that he did not frame the discussion as an argument for himself, but as a mirror held up to the city, a reflection of their own values, their assumptions, and their moral courage, or lack thereof. Imagine for a moment standing in his place. You are judged not by what you have done, but by whether you live according to the truth you claim to believe. How often do we compromise our principles for comfort, popularity, or security? How often do we silence the truth to avoid conflict, to gain approval, or to preserve peace? Socrates' trial illuminates a timeless question. What price are we willing to pay to uphold integrity? Even as the poison of hemlock awaited him, Socrates' demeanor remained serene. His calm was not the absence of fear, but the presence of purpose. He had lived a life committed to the examined path, asking questions that challenge complacency, exposing ignorance and cultivating virtue. Death, in this context, was not defeat, but the ultimate affirmation of a life aligned with truth. In our modern lives, the trial may not take place in a courtroom, but appears in everyday decisions. Standing up against injustice, speaking an uncomfortable truth, resisting unethical practices at work, or questioning the prevailing narratives in society. These are our daily trials. Socratic courage teaches that to compromise for convenience is to betray not only oneself, but the very principles that give life meaning. This trial also reveals the power of questions over answers. Socrates' questions forced Athens to confront its own contradictions, to examine its moral compass, and to recognize its blind spots. In much the same way, we must learn to ask the hard questions of ourselves. Are our actions guided by principle or convenience? Do we speak the truth even when it costs us something? Do we honor the values we claim to hold? By witnessing Socrates' steadfastness, we learn that the courage to uphold truth is inseparable from the courage to live authentically. Integrity demands vigilance, reflection, and sometimes sacrifice, but it also delivers freedom. The freedom to act without deceit, the freedom to navigate life with moral clarity, and the freedom to leave a legacy of honesty and virtue. As we leave the courtroom of ancient Athens and step back into our own world, we carry with us the principle that Socrates embodied. The trial of truth is eternal. Each day presents choices that test our character, challenge our assumptions, and measure our commitment to what is right. To embrace this trial is to embrace life itself, not as a series of compromises, but as a conscious pursuit of integrity, wisdom, and purpose. And so, from the agora to the courtroom, from the words of Socrates to the questions in our own hearts, we learn that truth is never easy, never convenient, but always transformative. To face it is to grow. To live it is to triumph. In the quiet corners of Athens, away from the marketplace and the courtroom, Socrates would gather a small group of young disciples. They sat beneath the shade of an olive tree, the chatter of the city distant, as he asked the questions that would shape their souls. What is justice? What is virtue? What is the purpose of life? He would ask. And when the answers came, hesitant or confident, he would follow with another. Do you truly understand, or do you merely repeat what others have taught you? This is the heart of Socrates' declaration. The unexamined life is not worth living. At first, it seems stark, even unsettling. What does it mean to examine one's life? Must we dissect every thought, scrutinize every action, analyze every belief? Socrates' answer is both simple and profound. To live consciously, to question continuously, and to align our actions with our values is the only path to a life of meaning. The unexamined life is one lived on autopilot, guided by habit, convention, or fear. It is a life shaped not by intention, but by circumstance, a life in which the soul drifts like a boat without a rudder. Socrates observed that most people cling to comfort, avoiding the discomfort of reflection. They accept the familiar, echo societal norms, and resist confronting inconvenient truths about themselves. Imagine your own life. How often do you pause to reflect on your decisions, your ambitions, your relationships? How often do you ask whether your actions align with your deepest values, or whether you are simply following the currents of expectation? Socratic inquiry challenges this inertia. It teaches that true freedom arises not from wealth, power, or popularity, but from the clarity and courage to understand one's own mind and motives. Consider the stories of Socrates' dialogues with the sophists, the thinkers of Athens who claimed knowledge without understanding. He would dismantle their arguments with patience and precision, revealing contradictions and prompting reflection. He taught that knowledge without examination is hollow, and virtue without understanding is fragile. Every question was a mirror, reflecting not the flaws of others, but the hidden assumptions of the self. In the modern world, this principle remains urgent. Social media encourages performance. Careers demand conformity, and cultural narratives often distract from self-reflection. Yet the practice of examining one's life, questioning our choices, motives, and desires, provides a compass in the storm. It allows us to live authentically, make conscious decisions, and pursue goals that truly resonate with our values. Socrates' courage in the face of his own trial reinforces this truth. He examined his life relentlessly, confronting fear, uncertainty, and death itself. He chose integrity over safety, reflection over convenience, and wisdom over ignorance. By doing so, he illuminated the path for generations to come, that self-examination is not optional, but essential, and that the soul thrives only when it is engaged in pursuit of understanding. To embrace the examined life is to cultivate awareness, to resist complacency, and to act with purpose. It is to ask repeatedly and relentlessly, am I living the life I choose or the life that has been prescribed for me? In every decision, every challenge, every triumph and failure, we are called to examine ourselves, to confront the truths we may prefer to ignore, and to shape a life guided by wisdom rather than impulse. As we step from the shade of the olive tree back into our own world, the lesson remains clear. The unexamined life leads to emptiness, while the examined life opens doors to clarity, courage, and meaning. To question, to reflect, to align thought with action, this is a legacy of Socrates. This is a life worth living. Athens is alive with movement and sound, yet Socrates walks as if guided by a different rhythm, a rhythm dictated not by the clamor of the crowd, but by the quiet insistence of the soul. For him, life is not measured in wealth, influence, or applause, but in virtue, the alignment of action with moral truth, the compass by which the soul navigates the world. Socrates often reminded his students, virtue is knowledge, vice is ignorance. To live virtuously is to understand what is good, just, and true, and to let that understanding direct every decision. It is not a rigid code, but an inner guidance system, a compass that points beyond convenience, beyond fear, beyond societal pressure. Virtue is the North Star of a life lived deliberately. Imagine a young disciple struggling with envy or anger, tempted to act impulsively. Socrates would not simply instruct him to restrain himself. Instead, he would ask probing questions. What good is achieved if you act in anger? Does this choice honor justice, honor yourself, honor the truth? Through inquiry, the disciple discovers that ethical action is not imposed from without, but cultivated from within. Virtue becomes a principle by which the soul steers through moral complexity. The trial of Socrates itself is a testament to this principle. Confronted with death, he could have compromised his values, sought mercy, or appeased the city. But he remained steadfast, guided by the compass of virtue rather than the fear of consequence. Every word he spoke, every action he took, was aligned with the pursuit of truth and moral excellence. He demonstrated that integrity is not a strategy for survival, but the defining measure of a life worth living. In today's world, the compass of virtue is often obscured. Social pressures, shortcuts, and moral relativism cloud judgment. Yet the lessons of Socrates remain clear. To navigate life without virtue is to wander aimlessly, to sacrifice meaning for convenience, and to trade the health of the soul for fleeting gain. Courage, honesty, fairness, compassion. These are not abstract ideals, but practical guides that shape our choices, our relationships, and our impact on the world. Virtue also connects the personal and the communal. A life guided by ethical principles does not exist in isolation. It influences family, friends, colleagues, and society. Socrates' dialogues were not merely intellectual exercises. They were invitations to cultivate virtue collectively, to challenge injustice, and to live as examples of moral clarity. In practicing virtue, we both honor ourselves and inspire others to seek the same path. To embrace virtue as the soul's compass is to recognize that every decision matters, every action reflects character, and every choice carries consequences beyond immediate perception. It is the courage to act rightly when wrong is easier, the wisdom to discern good from superficial appeal, and the humility to correct one's course when the compass falters. As we walk with Socrates through the streets of Athens and into the challenges of our modern lives, we see that virtue is not an abstract ideal, but a practical guide, a lantern illuminating the way through uncertainty, fear, and temptation. By allowing virtue to steer our choices, we live with integrity, clarity, and purpose, honoring not only ourselves but the timeless wisdom that Socrates embodied. Long after the streets of Athens have fallen silent and the marble columns have weathered the passing centuries, the voice of Socrates continues to speak, not as an echo trapped in history, but as a living method, a dialogue that shapes minds, challenges assumptions, and inspires generations. This is a legacy of Socratic dialogue, the art of questioning, reflecting, and uncovering truth through conversation. Socrates never wrote a single word himself. His ideas survived through Plato, Xenophon, and the memories of those who engaged with him. Yet, what he left behind is not merely philosophy. It is a method, a way of engaging with the world. By asking, probing, and listening, Socrates taught that understanding emerges not from answers imposed, but from discovery through dialogue. Wisdom begins in wonder, he said, reminding us that curiosity, coupled with the courage to question, ignites the mind. Imagine a student in the agora, challenged by Socrates. What is justice? What is courage? Do you know, or do you merely echo the words of others? These questions were not intended to humiliate, but to awaken. They sparked reflection, compelled honesty, and demanded that the learner examine not only the world, but themselves. In this, Socratic dialogue becomes more than method. It becomes a mirror of the soul. The power of this legacy lies in its timeless relevance. Across millennia, philosophers, thinkers, and leaders, Plato, Aristotle, Augustine, Nietzsche, and countless modern truth seekers, have been shaped by the practice of questioning. Yet it is not confined to academic study. Every conversation that challenges assumptions, every discussion that seeks clarity over comfort, every debate that pursues understanding rather than victory, carries forward the Socratic tradition. In today's world, Socratic dialogue is a beacon in the chaos of opinion, misinformation, and superficial certainty. It teaches patience, humility, and the pursuit of genuine knowledge. To engage in dialogue is to embrace uncertainty, to confront personal bias, and to cultivate insight. It reminds us that wisdom is not a possession, but a process, a living practice that deepens understanding and nurtures growth. Moreover, Socratic dialogue fosters connection. In questioning and listening, we encounter others not as obstacles or competitors, but as fellow travelers on the path toward truth. Each exchange becomes an opportunity to refine thought, to challenge assumptions, and to illuminate the blind spots of both self and society. It is an inheritance of inquiry, a call to participate actively in shaping a world guided by reason, virtue, and understanding. As we reflect on the life and death of Socrates, it becomes clear that his greatest gift is not a set of doctrines, but a way of thinking. His legacy teaches that true wisdom is never static. It is dynamic, unfolding through conversation, reflection, and courageous inquiry. Every question we ask, every belief we examine, every dialogue we engage in continues this tradition. And so, from the bustling agora of Athens to the digital forums and personal reflections of our modern lives, Socratic dialogue endures. It challenges us to speak with honesty, to listen with openness, and seek understanding above all else. By embracing this legacy, we honor not only the man who walked barefoot through Athens, questioning all he encountered, but also the timeless spirit of inquiry that defines the best of human thought. In every conversation, every debate, and every act of reflection, we carry forward the torch of Socrates, ensuring that the pursuit of wisdom continues, not as a relic of the past, but as a living, breathing force in the present and future. Even after centuries, Socrates' voice continues to reach across time, not as a distant echo, but as a call to live with purpose, courage, and relentless inquiry. While his dialogues and trials shape philosophy, his true legacy lies in the spirit of engagement, the mindset of a life lived deliberately, questioning, reflecting, and pursuing truth in every moment. Socrates walked barefoot through the streets of Athens, challenging assumptions, provoking thought, and guiding others not with answers, but with questions. He modeled a life where every choice, every word, every action was an opportunity to align with wisdom and virtue. To live in the Socratic spirit is to adopt this approach, to let inquiry guide us, to confront ignorance with humility, and to prioritize integrity over convenience. Imagine your own daily life as a modern agora. Each conversation, each decision, each challenge becomes a chance to embody the spirit, to pause before acting, to ask whether your choice reflects your highest values, to question what you've been told without examination. This is the essence of living Socratically. The unexamined life is not worth living, he reminds us, not as critique, but as an invitation. Living the Socratic spirit also means embracing uncertainty. Socrates never claimed to possess ultimate knowledge. He embraced the unknown as fertile ground for reflection and growth. In our world of constant information, fleeting certainty, and pressures conform, this mindset becomes revolutionary. To admit what we do not know is not failure, but courage. To question ourselves, our beliefs, and our society is not rebellion, but liberation. Furthermore, it is a call to moral courage. Socrates chose truth over life itself, integrity over approval, and wisdom over fear. While most of us may not face a courtroom demanding our death, we face daily tests, moments where ethical clarity conflicts with convenience, where honesty challenges comfort, where courage demands standing alone. To live the Socratic spirit is to meet these moments with awareness, clarity, and a commitment to principle. Dialogue remains central. Socratic living is not isolation, it is engagement. By questioning, listening, and exchanging ideas, we refine understanding, challenge bias, and cultivate wisdom in ourselves and others. Each interaction becomes a microcosm of the agora, an opportunity to illuminate the unseen, clarify thought, and foster moral and intellectual growth. Ultimately, to live the Socratic spirit is to integrate all the lessons we have encountered: the courage to question, the humility of ignorance, the pursuit of truth, the examined life, virtue as our compass, and dialogue as our guide. It is to carry forward his legacy in every choice, every conversation, and every moment of reflection. As we step back from the streets of ancient Athens into our own lives, Socrates whispers across time. Examine yourself, seek truth, act with virtue, question boldly, and let your life be a testament to wisdom. To live the Socratic spirit is to make philosophy. From the bustling marketplaces of Athens to the quiet corners of our modern lives, the voice of Socrates resonates across time, reminding us that life is not measured by comfort, wealth, or recognition, but by the depth of reflection, the courage of inquiry, and the integrity of our choices. He walked barefoot through the streets, asked questions that unsettled the powerful, and faced death with calm resolve, all in pursuit of a life aligned with truth and virtue. We have journeyed through his wisdom, the courage to question, the humility in recognizing ignorance, the steadfastness to uphold truth, the commitment to examine our lives, the guidance of virtue as our compass, the transformative power of dialogue, and the call to live the Socratic spirit every day. Each lesson is not merely intellectual. It is a roadmap for living meaningfully with clarity, courage, and purpose. Socrates teaches that uncertainty is not to be feared, but embraced, that to admit what we do not know is the beginning of wisdom, and that the true measure of life is not in avoiding danger or discomfort, but in living faithfully to our principles. To honor him is not simply to study his words, but to embody his spirit, to question boldly, to act with integrity, and to pursue truth relentlessly, even when the world resists. As we step back from the shadow of ancient Athens, let us carry his lessons into our own lives. Let every choice be examined, every belief challenged, and every action guided by virtue. Let dialogue, curiosity, and reflection be our companions. Let courage, humility, and integrity shape the legacy we leave. And in the stillness of your mind, in the choices of your day, remember Socrates' call. The unexamined life is not worth living. Lie boldly, question deeply, act virtuously, and let your life become a testament to the timeless wisdom of a man who walked barefoot through Athens, carrying nothing but the light of inquiry and the courage to seek truth.